Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a topic that might sound, like something straight out of a sci-fi movie, or maybe a New Age retreat.
Yeah, it has that vibe sometimes.
But our source material makes a really compelling case that it's actually deeply rooted in some of the most fundamental philosophical questions humans have, wrestled with for centuries.
Absolutely. The topic, lucid dreaming.
Right.
That experience of knowing you are dreaming while you are actually in the dream state itself, it's incredibly potent when it happens.
It's like the whole game changes, doesn't it?
It really does. It's the moment the dream world shifts from being something you just passively experience to something you can potentially interact with on a whole new level. You gain awareness.
You wake up within the dream.
Exactly. And with that awareness, often comes the ability to, choose your actions, maybe even influence the dream environment in ways you couldn't normally.
Like the classic examples, flying, changing the scene.
Or talking to dream characters with a level of conscious intent you just don't have in a standard dream. It's a different state entirely.
And while that potential for, wish fulfillment and pure adventure is definitely part of the appeal.
Oh, for sure. It's fun.
The paper we've been exploring argues that focusing only on that really misses the much deeper significance. It positions lucid dreaming not just as like a cool party trick or a fun hobby, but as a practical arena.
A laboratory almost.
Yeah, exactly. An arena for engaging with these really profound philosophical ideas.
And that's what this deep dive is all about. We're taking that source of paper, specifically exploring how philosophy can be applied to lucid dreaming, and we want to extract the most valuable insights for you.
So our mission today is to understand how these concepts that usually feel confined to, philosophy classrooms or really dense books.
Yeah, things like critical thinking, the nature of reality, the self, consciousness, perception.
How these aren't just abstract academic exercises.
Right. They are, in fact, practical tools. Think of it like an intellectual toolkit, and this toolkit can fundamentally change how you understand and even engage with the dream state.
And the source does a great job, I think, of blending the practical guidance from a prominent sleep and dream researcher, Daniel Love.
His work is central to the paper.
Blending that with these broader philosophical viewpoints, it's a nice mix.
It really is. So maybe before we go further, we should just make sure we're all on the same page with the definition, drawing from Love's work as it's presented in the source.
Good idea. So lucid dreaming isn't just having a fleeting thought like, this is weird, maybe I'm dreaming.
No, it's more sustained than that.
Yeah.
It's having the actual knowledge, the certainty that you are dreaming while you are within the dream itself.
And crucially, according to this definition, this knowledge comes along with maintaining a clear and critical mind.
Yeah, a mind that feels very similar to your state of mind when you are wide awake. That critical clarity is really the game changer.
Because it means you're not just reacting on instinct within whatever weird dream plot is happening.
Exactly. You're able to pause, to assess the situation, and make conscious choices about your actions. You have agency.
And this awareness, this agency, often grants you a degree of control over the environment that's just, impossible in waking physical reality.
By definition, yeah. You can decide to fly, you can walk through walls, you might conjure objects or people, actions that completely defy the laws of physics as we know them when we're awake.
And the possibilities mentioned in the source are incredibly diverse. I mean, yes, there's the adventure and wish fulfillment side.
Flying like Superman, controlling the weather.
Using telekinesis, all that cool stuff. And the source really emphasizes this isn't just like vague mental imagery.
No, it can be incredibly vivid. Experience with all your physical senses, the feeling of the wind rushing past, the visual detail, the tactile sensation of touching something. It can feel as real, sometimes even more real, than anything you experience when awake.
Wow. But, as the source points out, beyond the pure fun of it,
which is considerable.
Absolutely. But beyond that, lucid dreaming offers this unique laboratory for exploring the mind itself.
It's a chance to directly experience how your mind constructs reality, almost from the inside out. To probe the nature of consciousness, to understand perception from a purely internal perspective.
And to investigate that often slippery concept of the self. Who is the you that's dreaming?
Exactly. And it can also be a really powerful tool for creativity. Imagine like jamming with your musical heroes in a dream, or working through a complex piece of writing.
Or even emotional processing. The source mentions revisiting difficult past events or maybe finding closure in a safe internal environment.
The potential applications are really broad.
Now, the source is realistic. It does acknowledge that the biological, psychological, physiological factors underlying all this, they're complex. They're not fully understood.
We don't have all the answers yet, and we don't know for sure if absolutely everyone is capable of it. There's likely variation.
However, and this is important, the source quickly adds a hopeful note for you, the listener.
Yeah, it basically states that there's generally no inherent biological or psychological reason why you couldn't learn to experience lucid dreams if the idea intrigues you.
So the potential seems to be pretty widely distributed.
Provided you learn from reliable sources, of course, and approach it with the right kind of tools. Which brings us perfectly to the first set of tools philosophy provides.
Critical thinking.
Exactly, critical thinking. Our source reveals two really crucial insights about critical thinking in the context of lucid dreaming.
Okay, and what are they?
First, and maybe most immediately practical for anyone looking into this, it's your best weapon against the absolute flood of online misinformation about the topic.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine that's a minefield.
It really is.
Yeah.
And second, and this is maybe more surprising, critical thinking is highlighted as the most direct tool you have within the dream state itself to actually realize you're dreaming, to trigger lucidity.
Okay, let's tackle that first point. Navigating the sea of information, or maybe misinformation. The paper, drawing heavily on Daniel Love's work, makes a pretty blunt statement about this.
Yeah, it says a significant amount of the information circulating online about lucid dreaming is, well, simply put, it's misinformation. It's wrong or misleading.
And does it say why that is?
It does. It delves into it and identifies sort of two main types. First, there's the unintentional kind. Well-meaning people sharing concepts they've only partially understood. Maybe they read something somewhere and they present it as established fact.
Happens all the time online.
All the time. But maybe more concerning is the second type. Willful misleading. People doing it deliberately, often for, financial gain or maybe just to build online followings, get clicks.
And dreams seem like fertile ground for that because they're so subjective.
Exactly. It's incredibly easy for someone to make wild, completely unverifiable claims about their own amazing dream experiences, or about some secret technique, or about the very nature of dreams and reality. And they exploit that subjective nature to avoid scrutiny. How can you possibly disprove someone's claim about what happened in their private dream, or what their special technique achieved for them?
Right, you can't directly observe it.
Nope. And this is where philosophy, specifically its emphasis on logic and sound reasoning, offers an absolutely essential framework. It gives you the techniques, the methods, to help you distinguish between valid arguments that are actually supported by evidence or good reasoning.
And flawed reasoning or just outright pseudoscience.
Exactly. It's about building a robust method for evaluating claims, not just swallowing everything you read online whole.
Does the source give examples of this flawed reasoning?
Oh, yeah. It provides some almost textbook examples of the kind of stuff that runs rampant in some online lucid dreaming communities.
Like what?
Well, you find claims about, say, scientifically proven reality shifting. The idea that you can literally shift your conscious awareness to another physical reality or dimension.
Wow.
And it's presented not as, speculation or a spiritual belief, but as a proven technique based on science, which it isn't. Or you get people claiming the multiverse theory, which is a really complex area of theoretical physics, claiming that it's somehow mainstream, accepted science, and that it directly applies to dream control or reality manipulation.
Cherry-picking bits of science.
Totally cherry-picking, using only tiny bits of information while completely ignoring the vast scientific context, the debates, the qualifications. It's misleading.
The source mentioned one specific example in detail, didn't it? Something about quantum physics.
Yes, the double slit experiment. This one gets misused a lot. The argument you often hear goes something like this. Okay, because photons or electrons behave in strange ways in this experiment.
Like acting as both waves and particles, passing through multiple slits at once.
Right, and seemingly being influenced by observation. Because of this quantum weirdness, the argument claims this somehow proves that conscious entities like you, the dreamer, can manipulate reality or even switch between realities just by thinking about it in a dream.
So they're making a huge leap from subatomic particles to conscious reality shifting.
A massive leap. And presenting it as scientific proof for these really big metaphysical claims.
So how does the source use critical thinking to counter that?
It applies basic logic. The counter-argument is actually elegantly simple. Logically, the physical behavior of particles in the double-slit experiment, it would likely occur exactly the same way, even if there were no conscious entities anywhere in the universe to observe them, or even exist at all.
The physics itself doesn't seem to require a conscious mind to make it happen.
Exactly. The physics doesn't inherently require a conscious observer in the way these claims suggest. Therefore, the phenomenon of light or electrons passing through slits probably has absolutely nothing to do with human consciousness or our ability to switch realities in a dream.
The connection just isn't there. The logic is flawed.
It's simply not supported. The leap is too big. See, that's philosophy as a practical tool. It's taking a complex, often intimidating scientific concept that's being misused.
And applying basic principles of logical deduction.
Yeah, to show that the conclusion being drawn from it is just invalid within the context of the claims being made. It helps you spot the flaw, the gap in the argument.
That's really useful.
And the source is very clear. These logical, critical thinking skills aren't just for debunking strange claims on, dream forums or Reddit.
It's a life skill.
Absolutely. The source emphasizes that these same techniques, evaluating evidence, identifying logical fallacies, constructing sound arguments, these are practical tools for navigating misinformation and making reasoned judgments about reality in general.
Like Daniel Love suggests in Use Your Brain.
Right. It helps you cut through the noise, all the hype and nonsense, and focus on what's actually supported by reason and evidence. And that's an invaluable skill in our current information-saturated world, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. So, okay, the first gift of philosophy here is a robust filter for sorting out the good information from the bad about lucid dreaming.
Exactly. A bullshit detector, basically.
Got it. But you also mentioned it helps us trigger lucidity within the dream itself. How on earth does critical thinking do that?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. We shift from applying critical thinking to the topic, to applying it as a method to actually achieve lucidity while you're dreaming.
Okay, how?
Well, the source explains that the most common way people actually experience a lucid dream isn't usually from some fancy technique, but by suddenly becoming aware that they're dreaming while they are already immersed in the dream state. That moment of realization is the key.
The aha.
The aha moment. And the paper highlights that one of the most effective ways to provoke this realization is precisely through engaging your critical mind during the dream.
So instead of just accepting the weirdness,
you question it. You actively question the nature of the reality you're experiencing right in that moment. You assess your current state of being, your metaphysical experience, as the source puts it.
That deliberate, critical self-inquiry that can snap you into lucidity.
It's one of the primary triggers, yes. That questioning itself can be the catalyst.
So what are the practical ways to do that questioning? The source mentioned reality checks.
Exactly. Reality checks or reality assessments. These are designed to help you apply this critical thinking in situations where you suspect you might be dreaming, or just as a regular habit.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's internal analysis first. This involves critically examining your inner state and the consistency of your environment within the suspected dream.
So asking yourself questions like, does this situation make a logical sense?
Right. Are there strange details? Things out of place? How about your physical state? Does your body temperature feel normal, or is it strangely hot or cold? Are your emotions matching the situation, or are they way amplified compared to how you'd react when awake?
Looking for those inconsistencies.
Exactly. Those inconsistencies, when you observe them with a critical eye, can be powerful cues that something isn't quite right. They prompt you to ask, wait a minute, am I dreaming?
Okay, internal checks, what else?
Then there are specific physical tests. These are actions that tend to yield different results in dreams compared to waking life, based on how dreams often model, but don't perfectly replicate, physical reality.
Ah, like the famous ones. The source mentioned the breathing test.
Yeah, the classic breathing test.
Yeah.
You pinch your nose firmly, close your mouth, and try to inhale.
In waking life, obviously, nothing happens. You can't breathe.
Right. But the source suggests that in a dream, because the dream environment often tries to mimic the physical world, you might find that air still seems to come in, almost as if it's coming from the physical world outside your dream body. It's a very strange sensation.
That would definitely be a clue.
A big one. Another common one detailed is a hand test.
Trying to push a finger through your other hand?
Exactly. Try to push the fingers of one hand through the solid palm of your opposite hand. In waking reality, your hand feels solid, resistant. Can't do it.
But in a dream?
In a dream, the source suggests your fingers should pass through. or at least feels strangely permeable, sort of spongy or resistant, but ultimately yielding. It reflects the malleable nature of the dream substance.
Okay, those seem like clear tests, but there's a catch, isn't there?
Ah, yes. And here's where the source emphasizes the absolutely crucial role of critical thinking again. You must apply your critical faculty not just to performing the tests,
but to evaluating the results of the tests.
precisely, to avoid drawing false conclusions. This is a major pitfall many beginners fall into.
How so? Let's take the hand test.
Okay, if you push your finger and it goes straight through your palm success, the source says that is conclusive proof you are dreaming, no doubt about it.
Great, but what if it doesn't? What if you push and your hand feels solid, just like it does right now?
This is the critical part. The source points out that this does not prove you are awake. It is vital, absolutely vital, to understand that the test can fail even when you are dreaming.
Why would it fail in a dream?
Well, dream environments aren't always perfectly consistent. They don't always follow the expected dream logic. Your dream hand might feel solid simply because of your deeply ingrained waking expectations about hands being solid. Or it could just be due to the transient nature of dream stability. Maybe that part of the dream is just more stable or realistic at that moment.
So a solid hand doesn't mean you're safe in waking reality.
Not necessarily. The source uses another great example, the spinning top from the movie Inception.
Right, the totem, if it spins forever, you're dreaming. If it falls, you're awake.
That was the movie's logic. But as the source correctly notes, thinking critically, the spinning top could easily fall over even in a dream. There's no dream law that says tops must spin forever.
Huh, I never thought of that.
So if the top falls over in your test, it gives you zero useful information about whether you are dreaming or not. It's a test that provides a conclusive, yes, I'm dreaming result if it spins forever, but an inconclusive, could be either dreaming or awake result if it falls.
So concluding you're awake just because the top fell is...
It's a failure of critical reasoning.
Yeah.
You jump to a conclusion based on inconclusive evidence.
Ah, I see. That's subtle, but really important. So performing the test isn't enough. You have to logically analyze the outcome. A successful test, like the finger going through the hand, proves you're dreaming.
Correct.
But a failed test, like the finger not going through, proves, and nothing conclusive about being awake, it just means the test didn't work this time.
Precisely. Therefore, the logical approach recommended by the source is to perform multiple reality tests before drawing any firm conclusion about your current state.
Don't rely on just one.
Exactly. Relying on just one test, especially if it's one that can fail even in a dream, like the hand test or the spinning top, introduces a significant chance of getting it wrong, of missing your chance to become lucid.
So use a combination.
Use a combination, maybe some internal analysis, how weird does this feel, and several different physical tests, and critically evaluate the result of each one. This minimizes the risk of drawing a false conclusion. It ensures you're using a sound, critical method to assess your reality.
It's like building a case based on multiple pieces of evidence, not just one potentially shaky piece.
That's a perfect analogy. It's about converging evidence.
Okay, that's a really powerful, practical application of critical thinking right there. So, moving on. Beyond using critical thinking to assess the external world of information and the internal world of the potential dream, the paper argues that understanding the nature of the self and consciousness is also absolutely essential.
Yes, and these are arguably even deeper philosophical waters we're wading into now. But the source makes a very strong case for their practical importance in lucid dreaming.
Why? How does understanding the self help you fly in a dream?
Well, maybe not directly help you fly, but the key insight is this. Gaining a deeper understanding of the nature of yourself and your consciousness is precisely what provides you with the crucial cues for when to question reality in the first place.
Ah, it helps you recognize the dream state earlier or more reliably.
Exactly. And perhaps it even informs how you might influence the dream state once you do become lucid. But primarily, it's about recognition.
Because, as the source points out, the goal isn't really for the dream itself to become lucid. The dream is just the experience, the environment.
Right. The crucial element is that you, the dreamer, become lucid. It's a change in your state of awareness within the dream context.
So the source prefers the term lucid dreamer.
It suggests it's a more accurate term than lucid dream. To cultivate a lucid dreamer, you really need to understand the entity, the self, that is doing the dreaming and becoming aware.
And this entity, the self, philosophy has had a lot to say about that, and not always straightforward things.
Oh, definitely not. The source brings in perspectives like that of the philosopher David Hume, discussed via another source, Cottingham. Hume famously argued that the self isn't this static, singular, unified entity we usually feel like we are.
He saw it more as an illusion.
More or less. Or perhaps more accurately, a bundle of perceptions experienced over time. Just a stream of thoughts, feelings, sensations. From this perspective, the human mind is a really complex system, likely composed of many different working parts and processes.
Rather than having a single central self module sitting in charge.
Exactly. It's more like a committee, maybe, than a CEO.
Okay. And how does the source connect this idea of a multi-part mind to lucid dreaming, specifically through Daniel Love's work?
Love's perspective, as presented in the paper, aligns really nicely with this. He talks about different parts of the mind, including what we typically call the conscious mind, and especially the prefrontal cortex, the bit responsible for critical thought, planning, executive function.
The logical part.
The logical, self-aware part. Love suggests these parts have fluctuating activation levels or thresholds. They aren't always on to the same degree.
Okay, so how does that play out in different states?
Well, think of it like this. When you're wide awake, the activation levels of your prefrontal cortex and your conscious critical mind are generally high. That's what allows for clear reasoning, good memory recall, critical assessment, the hallmarks of your waking self.
Makes sense.
But in a standard non-lucid dream state, these specific parts are largely suppressed or inactive. Their activation thresholds are high, meaning it takes a lot to get them going.
And that suppression explains why regular dreams can be so bizarre and illogical.
Precisely. Why you accept absurd events without questioning them, why your memory is patchy, and why you often struggle to remember dreams clearly upon waking. The critical, self-aware parts are basically offline or running at very low power.
But in a lucid dream...
In a lucid dream, the source suggests that the activation levels of these critical conscious parts of the mind become significantly more active than in a standard dream. Maybe not quite reaching the full activation level of being completely awake, but much higher than usual for sleep.
It's this partial but significant reactivation that allows you to regain that critical clarity and awareness within the dream.
Exactly. The lights come partially back on in the prefrontal cortex.
And these differing activation levels provide a kind of neurological framework for understanding the difference between your typical waking self and your typical dreaming self.
Yeah, they literally operate with different parts of the mental architecture being more or less dominant at the time. They're different functional states of the same system.
So, okay, theory is interesting, but what's the practical application here, according to the source? How do you use this understanding?
You use it by learning to identify the unique characteristics and patterns of your dreaming self. How does that self typically behave, think, and feel differently compared to your waking self?
Like a kind of psychological profile of your dream persona.
Exactly. This self-analysis provides incredibly valuable, personalized cues for when to apply those reality checks we were just talking about.
So instead of just doing reality checks randomly throughout the day and hoping the habit carries over,
which can work, but is maybe less efficient, you can train yourself to recognize the specific psychological flavor or signature of your dreaming self.
Can you give examples?
Sure. Ask yourself, is your dreaming self consistently more anxious or fearful than your waking self? That's common for many people. Do you tend to experience certain emotions, maybe excitement, confusion, dread, with much greater intensity in dreams than you normally do when awake?
Or maybe common thought patterns, like, does your dreaming self often make strange leaps in logic or get really preoccupied with something trivial that your waking self wouldn't care about?
Exactly, those kinds of things. These consistent differences, once you identify them, become highly reliable personal cues. They act like internal alarm bells, signaling that you are very likely in the dream state right now, prompting you to deploy that critical thinking and do a reality check.
This really brings us back to the importance of dream journaling, doesn't it? The source recommends it as essential.
Absolutely essential. But again, the paper stresses how you analyze your journal entries is key. The mistake many people make is just listing the weird events, the plot points.
I dreamt my cat could fly. I was back in high school, but everyone was old. That kind of thing.
Right, that's just logging the dream plot. The source argues that the truly effective way to use your dream journal for inducing lucidity is to analyze it specifically to identify the characteristics of the dreaming self.
The internal state, the thought processes, the emotional responses, the reactions that are unique to you when you are dreaming.
Yes. Focus on the protagonist, not just the scenery.
The source had a really good specific example for this, I remember, about dreaming of someone you haven't seen in years.
Ah, yeah, that was a great illustration. Let's say you frequently dream about someone you knew years ago, but haven't seen since. Just seeing that person appear in the dream itself isn't necessarily a strong cue for becoming lucid.
Why not? It seems like an anomaly.
It is an anomaly from the perspective of your waking life. But the source argues it only becomes a powerful target cue for lucidity if your dreaming self's internal experience, their thoughts, feelings, their cognitive or emotional vibes in that dream actually reflect the fact that it's been a long time.
So it depends on how the dreamer reacts internally.
Precisely. If the person just appears, maybe they're working behind a counter in your dream or sitting next to you on a bus, and you, the dreaming self, don't feel any surprise, don't think, wow, I haven't seen Sarah in ages, what you doing here? Or feel a wave of nostalgia or confusion about their presence.
Then seeing them is just part of the random dream narrative. Your dreaming self is just accepting it.
Right. Your dreaming self isn't registering the inconsistency with your waking life memories or context.
Yeah.
So it doesn't prompt any critical inquiry. It's just another dream character.
If your dream journal shows a pattern where when this person appears, your dreaming self consistently thinks things like, isn't it weird I'm seeing Dave? It's been forever. Or you feel a distinct emotional jolt specifically tied to the time gap.
That's a potent cue. That's gold. Because now your dreaming self is demonstrating a pattern of recognizing or reacting to an inconsistency with waking reality. It's showing a flicker of that critical awareness.
So the advice is to focus your analytical energy when reading your journal, directly on identifying these patterns in the dreaming self's reactions, feelings, and internal commentary.
Exactly. That's a much more effective target for triggering lucidity than, say, trying to spend your waking hours thinking really hard about that person, hoping they'll pop up in your dream and that you'll happen to notice the significance.
It's about understanding and targeting the specific psychological landscape of your dreaming self.
You got it. And that is using these philosophical insights into the nature of self and consciousness in a profoundly practical, personalized way.
Okay, so building further on this understanding of consciousness, the source delves into how it's particularly useful when you're trying to actively induce a lucid dream using specific techniques.
Moving beyond just hoping to spot a spontaneous cue and trying to intentionally initiate the lucid state.
And a very common technique mentioned is the one involving waking up and going back to sleep.
Yes, waking up after a few hours of sleep, staying awake for a brief period, and then going back to sleep. It's popularly known as WBTB, or wake back to bed. Lots of people find it effective.
And the source explains the why behind it, based on that idea of consciousness activation thresholds we talked about.
Exactly. The thinking is waking up deliberately, especially if you time it during or right after a period of REM sleep, which typically happens more frequently a few hours into the night. It briefly boosts the activation levels of your conscious mind and your prefrontal cortex. They get a little jolt of wakefulness.
Okay.
So the theory is, by staying awake for just a short while and then returning to sleep, particularly if you manage to enter another period of REM sleep relatively soon after, you're more likely to carry a higher than usual level of that conscious awareness back into the dream state.
Making lucidity more probable because your critical faculties are already partially primed.
That's the idea. You're sort of smuggling a bit more consciousness back into sleep with you.
But the source makes a crucial point here. The how long you stay awake isn't one size fits all.
No, definitely not. The optimal amount of time to stay awake during this technique varies significantly from person to person, and finding your personal sweet spot for that duration
Is directly informed by understanding your own unique patterns of consciousness and, specifically, how quickly you tend to fall asleep.
Bingo. Your personal sleep onset latency, as it's called.
That makes sense.
Miles.
So the source gives practical guidance based on that.
It does. If you're someone who typically falls back asleep very quickly once your head hits the pillow, maybe in just a few seconds, it means your conscious awareness dissolves very easily back into the sleep state. It fades fast.
So for those people.
You might need to stay awake for a longer period during the WBTB technique. The source mentions an hour as a typical starting point for many people in this category. The longer waking period ensures that your conscious mind gets more significant boost before you try to sleep again, increasing the chance that enough residual awareness carries over into the next dream.
Okay. But what about the opposite? People who take ages to fall back asleep.
Right. If you're someone who often takes a long time, minutes, maybe even hours, to fall back asleep after waking up, it means your conscious awareness doesn't dissolve as easily. you naturally maintain a higher baseline of lingering awareness, that sort of in-between state.
So for them, staying awake for an hour might be counterproductive.
Very likely. The source advises you should probably stay awake for less time during WBTB before attempting sleep again. You might already have the necessary level of lingering consciousness just from waking up. Staying awake too long might just make it really difficult to fall asleep at all, defeating the purpose.
So again, it comes back to knowing yourself, your own sleep patterns.
It really does. Understanding your personal sleep transition helps you tailor the technique for better results.
And this understanding of consciousness also sheds light on that common frustration, the one many people experience: trying too hard to fall asleep.
Oh yeah, the great sleep paradox. The source highlights the inherent contradiction here. Sleep fundamentally requires your conscious, logical mind, your sense of self, to essentially quiet down, deactivate, and allow unconscious processes to take over.
You have to let go of conscious control.
Exactly. So, actively trying to fall asleep by focusing intently on the process, by using conscious effort and will, it creates a direct conflict with the state you're trying to achieve. You're engaging the very system that needs to power down.
You can't force sleep with conscious will.
You really can't. As the source explains, all you can realistically do is create the right conditions: dark room, quiet, comfortable, and adopt a state of mind that allows sleep to naturally take over when your body and brain are ready. This philosophical insight helps you avoid those counterproductive efforts. Let go, don't grasp.
That's helpful advice just for regular sleep, let alone lucid dreaming. Okay, the source also discusses a related, though often more challenging, technique: consciously entering a dream. Wild, right? Wake-initiated lucid dream?
That's the one. And the source acknowledges right away that this sounds somewhat contradictory, almost paradoxical. Because, by definition, being asleep involves a different state of consciousness than being fully awake and conscious.
So what's the goal? It's not like you stay fully awake and then just teleport into a dream world.
No, not usually like that. The goal is more subtle. It's about maintaining just enough awareness, maybe like a tiny fragile thread of consciousness, to witness and accompany your mind as it transitions into the dream state from the very beginning.
You want to be present for the birth of the dream as it forms.
That's a good way to put it. You want to observe the hypnagogic imagery, the shift in sensory input as it solidifies into a dream scene without losing that thread of awareness.
And the source justifies trying this by pointing out that consciousness isn't entirely absent even in regular dreams.
Right. It reminds us that there is a level of conscious activity, even in standard dreams. You make decisions, you react to events, you have experiences, even if you don't know you're dreaming. And lucid dreams clearly involve significant conscious awareness.
So the idea of maintaining some awareness during the transition into a dream isn't completely out of bounds, neurologically speaking.
It seems plausible, though difficult. The absolute key to successfully maintaining that thread of awareness while still allowing the sleep process to happen, according to the source, is using a focal point.
Something specific to focus on.
Yes. You need something specific to gently hold your minimal awareness on. It needs to be compelling enough to keep that thread of consciousness from snapping entirely, but passive enough that it allows the natural sleep process to proceed and take priority over your focus.
That sounds like a balancing act.
It is, a very delicate one. And critically, the source stresses, for this technique to actually result in a lucid dream, the very next sleep stage you enter needs to be REM sleep, the stage where vivid dreaming typically occurs.
So timing is crucial again.
Timing is crucial. The source summarizes the 3 pillars for attempting conscious dream entry, or WILD. First, knowing how long it typically takes you to fall asleep again, understanding your own consciousness patterns, ensuring you're attempting this at a time when your body is likely to enter REM sleep relatively quickly. This is why it's often tried after waking up partway through the night, during those later sleep cycles, which are naturally REM-rich.
And third,
selecting the appropriate focal point tailored to your personal sleep speed, whether you're a fast or slow sleeper.
Okay, so again, understanding your consciousness, particularly that fast versus slow sleep onset pattern, directly guides the choice of that crucial focal point.
Yes, the source gives different recommendations based on this.
What about for fast sleepers, people who drift off really quickly?
For fast sleepers whose consciousness dissolves into sleep very easily, often in mere seconds, they need a focal point that helps them sort of hang on to that thread of awareness. Something that engages subtly with the physical or proprioceptive sense, but without requiring heavy logical effort. The source suggests visualizing a simple, continuous movement that would be physically impossible in their current sleeping position. Like imagining you're gently floating just slightly above the bed, or maybe gently stretching one arm up through the ceiling.
Okay, a gentle, impossible sensation.
Right. The visualization needs to be minimal, non-narrative, don't build a whole story around it, and it has to prioritize allowing sleep to happen over requiring intense conscious effort. The idea is just to maintain just enough gentle focus on this simple physical impossibility.
And if the next stage is REM,
If the next stage of sleep is REM, your mind, as it enters the dream state, might incorporate or respond to this focused visualization. You might then become aware as the dream begins around this sensation, perhaps finding yourself actually floating and realizing, hey, I'm dreaming.
cool. What about the slow sleepers, the ones who lie awake for ages?
For slow sleepers, whose consciousness doesn't fade easily and who might lie awake for minutes or even hours, they often need the opposite kind of focal point. They need something that helps them withdraw from the physical world and from that conscious urge to move, fidget, or actively try to sleep.
So what do they focus on?
The source suggests something counterintuitive, using mild physical discomfort, specifically that restless urge to toss and turn that often keeps slow sleepers awake, as the focal point.
Using the annoyance itself.
Kind of.
Yeah.
The technique involves allowing your mind to just wander freely whenever you feel that urge to move, instead of consciously trying to suppress the urge or focusing hard on relaxation techniques to make yourself sleep.
You use the distraction of the urge as a sort of anchor.
Exactly. Use it as a signal to just let your thoughts drift, passively observe the urge without acting on it or fighting it. This strategy maintains just enough residual awareness tied to the physical body, the discomfort or the urge to move, to prevent complete conscious shutdown.
While simultaneously allowing the mind to disengage from active directed thought and the need to control the physical world.
Precisely. If REM sleep then kicks in, this state of detached awareness, perhaps loosely focused on internal sensation, or the lack thereof, as the body becomes paralyzed in REM, can potentially transition smoothly into conscious awareness within the emerging dream. It creates that necessary delicate balance for slow sleepers, letting go enough to sleep while holding on just enough to notice.
That's fascinatingly specific. Okay, finally, the source brings in one more core philosophical concept, perception. How does that relate to understanding and maybe controlling the dream world?
The core insight here, which draws on long-standing philosophical ideas about how our minds construct our perceived reality, is actually quite simple but incredibly powerful in the dream context.
Which is?
That the entire dream world you experience, everything you see, hear, touch, taste, smell in a dream, is created by your mind. It is not an external physical reality you're observing.
It's an internal construction.
Entirely. An internal construction based on your memories, your expectations, your beliefs, your fears, your desires, and all sorts of unconscious processes. Your brain is the projector, the scriptwriter, the director, and the audience all at once.
And the implication of fully grasping that for dream control seems pretty immediate.
It's direct. If your mind is the sole creator and sustainer of the reality you are currently inhabiting within the dream, then logically, your conscious thoughts, beliefs, and intentions can directly influence anything within that reality.
This is the fundamental reason why those seemingly magical actions become possible in a lucid dream.
Exactly. Things like telekinesis, changing the scenery with a thought, conjuring objects or people out of thin air. You aren't actually breaking the laws of physics. You're simply influencing the output of your own mental construct. You change the code of the simulation, so to speak.
Understanding perception gives you the key to the control panel, in a way.
In a way, yes. Believing you can do something in a lucid dream is often the first and most important step to actually doing it.
However, the source also acknowledges a very common challenge that pops up right here.
Yes. The issue of overthinking, or trying to exert too much rigid, conscious control over the dream process.
Like trying to micromanage every little detail or forcing the dream to follow a very specific, predefined script.
Exactly. That kind of intense, focused, effortful control can paradoxically disrupt the delicate flow of the dream state. It can make things unstable, or even cause you to wake up prematurely. You try too hard, and the whole thing collapses.
And the source mentions, just briefly, that philosophy might offer some tools here too, something about Stoicism.
Yes, it touches on it briefly, suggesting that principles from philosophies like Stoicism, which emphasize understanding what is and isn't within your control, can be useful. It's framed as learning when and how to let go within the dream.
So sometimes you gain more effective influence or control.
By giving up the need for rigid, conscious microcontrol. By allowing the dream to unfold more naturally, while perhaps focusing your intent on broader outcomes, or simply focusing on controlling your own reactions and choices within whatever the dream presents.
Mastering your internal state and intention rather than trying to strong-arm the external dream environment.
Something like that. It's about finding that balance between intention and acceptance, which is a pretty deep philosophical theme itself.
Okay, so bringing this all together then. The source's overarching argument seems really powerful. It's basically saying that lucid dreaming, if you want to pursue it seriously and long-term.
It's fundamentally a philosophical endeavor. It's not just about techniques, it's about understanding.
Right. If you want to move beyond just having accidental lucid dreams now and then, or getting stuck and frustrated with techniques based on misinformation, understanding these core philosophical concepts is crucial.
Absolutely. Things like critical thinking, using it as both a filter for information and a trigger for lucidity. Understanding the nature of yourself and consciousness, seeing that as the key to identifying your personal dream cues and mastering induction techniques, and understanding perception, recognizing that as the foundation for knowing how dream reality works and how you might influence it.
Without this philosophical foundation, the source pretty strongly suggests people are likely to hit significant roadblocks. They might experience wasted time, a lot of confusion, frustration.
And very often, they just give up on what the paper describes as a truly wonderful endeavor. They lack the intellectual framework to understand why certain techniques work sometimes and not others, or how their own mind is actually interacting with the dream state. It all feels random and uncontrollable.
But with this understanding, you, the listener, gain a much more robust toolkit. You're equipped not just with a list of techniques, but with the conceptual framework to use them intelligently and effectively.
Yeah, you learn how to critically evaluate information you come across, how to identify reliable personal cues hidden within your own mind and dreams, and how to approach both spontaneous lucidity and deliberate induction techniques with much greater insight into your own consciousness and how it operates.
And as the source implies throughout, these skills aren't just for dreaming, are they?
Not at all. The critical thinking skills, the ability to analyze your own inner state, to identify patterns in yourself across different states of awareness, these aren't skills you leave behind on the pillow in the morning.
They're profoundly valuable tools for navigating the increasingly complex landscape of information in our waking lives, too, and for gaining deeper self-understanding in general.
Absolutely. The practice informs waking life, and waking life practice informs the dream.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? The source lays out how our minds have this incredible capacity to construct the complex, sensually rich reality we experience in dreams, basically from internal resources alone.
Yeah, building worlds inside our heads every night.
And then you think about our perception when we're awake. It also involves filtering, interpreting, modeling external sensory input based on our internal frameworks, our expectations, our past experiences.
Our waking reality is also a construction, in a sense, interpretation.
So the provocative thought maybe is, how fundamentally similar or different are these two processes of reality creation, the dream one and the waking one happening within the very same mind? Where does one end and the other begin?
That is definitely a question to carry with you. Food for thought, inside and outside the dream.
Thanks for diving deep with us today.